please put down that stupid remote-controlled doohickey you've got glued to your hand. It's time for Drive-In News. Well, we had Terminator, we had Reanimator, we had Exterminator, we had Rejuvenator, and now we've got Alienator, the story of an outer space female bodybuilder sent to Earth to destroy Jan Michael Vincent's children. That guy shouldn't have been allowed to breathe in the first place. New movie out called Forbidden Son, which is a sequel to The Wicker Man drive-in cult classic, and this one stars Lauren Hutton in the story of a young blonde girl who becomes obsessed with the ancient ritual of the Greek bull dance, where you run directly at a bull, vault over his horns like you're an Olympic gymnast, land on his back, and flip off over his rear end. Now, first she tries this with guys wearing bull costumes, and then she goes for the full bull. Forbidden Son, and that one I gotta see. Okay, we have got a Chad Everett alert. Chad Everett alert. Chad has just come out with a flick called Heroes Stand Alone, where Chad's a CIA guy who gets shot down in Central America, and he has to get out before the Russians and Cubans find out the United States is meddling down there. So, Chad, I don't know how to tell you this, but, oh, never mind. And it's finally out. Basket Case 2. Do you guys recognize this guy who's been helping me out here today on Drive-In News? It's Belial. That's right, the squashed octopus Siamese twin from the original Basket Case, and he's back again. He's twisted, he's mean, and he's living in the picnic basket again. Innocent people are going to get their faces eaten off. The sequel to the Drive-In Hall of Fame classic opens this week, and a lot of people think it's even better than the first one. This is Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that it's only 2 weeks until the movie channel Joe Bob Briggs World Tour, 30 cities in 2 days. Or is that 2 cities in 30 days? Well, I'll get it straightened out later for the next edition. I'm Joe Bob Briggs, and it's time once again for Drive-In News. Do you remember how Sly Rocky Rambo said he was only going to make 3 Rocky movies and how it was just going to be a Rocky trilogy? Well, he was a lying dog, because now he's making number 5 in Philadelphia with Talia Shire and, of course, Burt Young. And I think that personally what happened is Sly decided to do this because of the way those critics have just been dumping all over the great movies he's made recently, like Lock Up and Over the Top and Rambo 3 and Cobra. And, well, Cobra was a piece of dog doo, I admit that. But all those were movies before their time. Like Rambo 3, Sly goes to Afghanistan, blows up all the Russians, and then what happens in real life? A month later, the Russians withdraw all their troops from Afghanistan. The man is a genius. And the good news about Rocky V is that John Avildsen is directing it. He's the guy that directed the very first one, which is still the best one, and that was before Sly Rocky Rambo decided that he knew how to direct. Well, those twits in England are at it again. There's a video over there called Visions of Ecstasy, which is, I'm not making this up, the erotic visions of 16th century Spanish nun Saint Teresa of Avila. And so the British Board of Film Classification banned this sucker for what they said was blasphemy. And it's the first time in 77 years that they've used this old law to ban something. The law is almost 400 years old, and it says you can't be a blasphemer about Christianity. But you can be a blasphemer about any other religion. So back in 1979, as a matter of fact, they tried to get Monty Python's Life of Brian banned for the same reason. But if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. There is a reason we had to kick those people's heinies. All right, our title of the week is Mutants in Paradise. Evil genetic DNA scientists take a nerd and turn him into the ultimate warrior capable of surviving nuclear war, featuring Ray Boom Boom Mancini in one of his finest performances, Mutants in Paradise. In fact, they tell me this is one of the finest movies ever made in Charlottesville, Virginia. He started entertaining the possibility of making Frankenhooker the first movie to receive the new A rating, meaning newspapers would take the advertising for it, but no one under 18 would be admitted. Well, Shapiro Glickenhaus didn't like this idea, but then they thought about it and they thought, well, what the heck? It might be a way to attract even more attention to the movie. They could make up a poster that said, Frankenhooker, first movie to get an S and first movie to get an A. More letters than any movie in history. So one reason that Valini is relenting and starting to favor this A rating is that he fears that one of these X ratings are going to be overturned on appeal, which would cause more stupid congressmen to get on his back. You understand this? Meanwhile, the MPAA monkeys, they continue all that stuff they're doing. You know, they started out the year, they gave Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, an X for disturbing moral tone. That's kind of like saying, we don't know exactly why we hate this movie, we just hate it. And then they've been doling out these X's left and right. They gave an X to this art film called The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. Remember that one? Because one of the characters gets cooked, basted, and eaten in the last scene, so X for cannibalism on that one. Then they gave one to a movie called Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down for the scene featuring the scuba diving dildo. We've seen that. And then they gave one to a flick called Life is Cheap, but Toilet Paper is Expensive for graphic chicken cleaning. Do you believe that? Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that if we let them censor the chicken pluckers, then how long is it going to be before they're cutting out all the scenes of kittens being ground up in blenders? That was a great movie. Did you know that Kathy Shower did it? I didn't know that till the very end of the movie. I just thought she was a bad actress. Well, she was supposed to be a bad actress through the whole movie. Wasn't that neat? Because she was acting for Wings Hauser. Do you get it? Sometimes I think they cheat. They take the worst actors and they put them in roles like that so they can say, well, don't you see, weren't you watching? The bad acting was part of that character. Nothing against Kathy, though, because I always enjoy Kathy's two enormous talents. Don't you get a nice warm feeling inside at the end of that movie? Because Luther's been electrocuted 9 times. You know, Joe, he deserved to die for being so fat. And Georgie, he was obnoxious with the moonwalking. We can do without him. But that is the first time I've ever seen death by being ground up in a giant weed eater or whatever you call those things. Bloodspell. Never did figure out what the title means. All right, next week we're going back to one of my all-time favorites, Fairy Tales, the greatest all-nude sex musical ever made. The sex is great, but more important, the music is great too. Very weird movie from the 70s. Has Professor Irwin Corey in it. Okay, here's a letter that poured in from Texarkana, Texas, town that I used to live in. Actually, I lived over on the Arkansas side of Texarkana, but it's from Rhonda Nelson and Melody Rose, a mother and daughter team, and they say, Dear Joe Bob, the excitement in this area is very limited. Swamp Thing moved out of the area, and though we live in the town that dreaded sundown, and that's right, that movie was based on Texarkana, sundown here is time to pull out the lawn chairs and watch your neighbors water the yard. So you're our last hope for some Saturday night excitement. We would be really grateful if you would show a movie called Flesh and Blood with Rutger Hauer and Jennifer Jason Leigh that was made in 1985. It has all the elements that we all enjoy: sex, violence, language, and the big N, nudity. And Rutger is not hard on the eyes for us, and the males will enjoy Jennifer showing her best 2 assets every 20 minutes. So please, please show this movie and save 2 damsels in distress, your fans in the Bible Belt, Rhonda and Melody. All right, ladies, you asked for it, you are going to get it. 2 weeks from tonight, on the 25th, we have got Flesh and Blood, which for those of you who have not seen the movie, is almost too intense for cable. It's made by the same guy that did RoboCop. Takes place in Europe around the year 1500, full of knights and bandits and castles and everything. But it's not like an old Errol Flynn movie. It's more like Night of the Living Dead with costumes, a very raw movie. And if you've got a movie that you'd like to see, or maybe you just want a free copy of my world-famous newsletter, then write to me here at the Movie Channel mailbox, P.O. Box 1264, Radio City Station, New York, New York, 10101, and I'll get back to you. All right, that's it. It's over. You're just going to have to suffer for another week until it's time again for Drive-In Theater. This is Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that the drive-in will never die. Ouch! Oh, boy, I don't want to remember Marilyn Chambers that way, do you? Marilyn, if you're watching tonight, most people wouldn't be a good enough friend to tell you this, but do not take your clothes off on camera anymore. We have fond memories of you. You know, your body now looks like our bodies look, and that is not a pretty sight. The black leather pants were great. The poofy blonde hair, outstanding, but no more nookie. Please, Marilyn, we can't handle it. We can't handle the little rolls around your waist and the, well, you know what I mean. Now, look, a lot of people would make fun of Marilyn for the singing. You know, she does that song, We're Always Friends, but I thought the voice was okay. The song smelled, but Marilyn was fine. Next week, we're going to get back to basics with Kinjite, that movie where Charles Bronson takes on the child porno industry. Charles forces this pimp to eat a Rolex. Outstanding movie. Well, it's a decent movie. All right, we've got a couple of letters here alleging that I'm an imposter that I wanted to share with you. See what we got here. Yeah, I don't know how this stuff happens. First one comes from Kathy Gill of Bayonne, New Jersey. And she says, "Dear Billy, I had the movie channel on the other night and caught the sound of your southern drawl. How authentic is it, really? Now, I don't want you thinking I'm just any dumb blonde. I've ridden the rodeo circuit, so I've been around cowboys of all kinds. If you're not from around here, then where are you from originally? Why, of all places, did you choose New York? Signed, a misplaced country girl, Kathy Gill." Well, Kathy, I don't really believe you're from Bayonne, New Jersey. You're actually from Wyoming, aren't you? And you're just acting like a Jersey girl. And then before I answer that, here's another one from Marshall Dawkins of Dallas. And he says, "The first time I saw you, Joe Bob, I thought you were going to be another city cowboy. I come from Amarillo, Texas, so naturally the first time I saw you in your all-black outfit with your silver collar tips and silver bolo tie, I thought you weren't for real. But when I noticed you drinking a beer on television, I was impressed. Another thing that impressed me was your ability to look directly into the camera when talking. You have a real gift, Joe Bob. All that I ask is, seeing you're portraying a cowboy, that you keep the good name and goodwill of Texas at heart. What I mean is, the common stereotype of Texas is cowboys, oil ranching, and everything being big. If you're going to dress as a cowboy, please respect us, and please don't embarrass Texas. Sincerely, Marshall Dawkins." Okay, Marshall and Kathy, I'm glad y'all brought this up because a lot of people come up to me and they say, "I hear you live in Brooklyn. You're just acting like you're from Texas, aren't you?" You know, somehow this rumor got started about me being from Brooklyn. Nothing against Brooklyn. I was there last year, very nice people. They spared my life, but I was born in Dallas and I grew up in the following Texas cities: Earth, Spring Lake, Crosbyton, Fort Worth, and Texarkana. I've been to the Alamo. I sat through the whole lecture there. I've stepped in a lot of Texas things. I also spent some time in Arkansas, Tennessee, and Pennsylvania, but I never lived in Brooklyn. I worked at the racetrack there on Long Island for a while, Belmont Park. It's in Elmont, Long Island. But Brooklyn, no way, Jose, nope. And I would never do anything to embarrass Texas. I mean, most of us live here because we got kicked out of every decent state, so we don't have too many places left to go. So don't worry, Marshall. I will maintain the dignity of Texas at all times. Now, if you've got anything to say to us here at the Movie Channel, you want to request some movies, get some free junk, get the world-famous Joe Bob Briggs newsletter, then write to the Movie Channel mailbox, P.O. Box 1264, Radio City Station, New York, New York, 10101, and we'll get back to you. This is Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that they can take the Texas out of the boy, but they can't take the boy out of... That's not the way it goes. How does that thing go again? They can take the country out of Texas, but they can't... The drive-in will never die. They can lead a horse to Texas, but they can't make him salute the Mexican flag. No, that's not it. We'll get to that in a minute. First, I want you to pop a beer with me. I'm drinking Kokanee beer brewed up in British Columbia. It's the... It's the favorite beer of faithful drive-in theater viewer Steve Shower of Port Townsend, Washington. All right, I wanted to introduce a special guest tonight. People are always writing into me saying, "Joe Bob, all you do is some kind of drug head rap before the movie. We're sick of it. You ought to have some guests on drive-in theater." And of course, people have been saying that for about 3 years now, but until now, no guest has ever agreed to come on drive-in theater unless we're giving them a free TV or something. But we finally got a guest. We're going to do a Donahue kind of thing here. I'm really excited about it, actually. But I'm being kind of a smart-ass, I know, and I shouldn't be, because we're going to be talking about a very serious problem: anorexia. You've heard about it. Maybe you've laughed about it. Maybe you think people that have it are just being stupid. Well, none of those things are true, because the person you're about to meet, I've known this guy for about 15 years, and all that time, I didn't even know he was suffering from anorexia. He kept it a secret from everybody, even his immediate family. See, he was ashamed of it. He was afraid he would be found out. So this is an important night for him, a big step coming out in public like this, and I hope you appreciate the courage it takes for him to be here tonight. I want you to welcome Luther Willis. Welcome, Luther. Have a seat right here. Right here, Luther. All right, Luther, let's get right to it. When did you first find out that you were anorexic?
I've been aware of it all my life, but I really had to face it 2 months ago.
And what was that? What happened 2 months ago? Go ahead and tell the story.
Well, I hadn't eaten for 4 days. Whenever I would go out to lunch with somebody, I'd excuse myself and...
You'd barf it up?
Barf it up, right.
Spray the old porcelain?
Correct.
Toss your cookies? Well, Luther, a lot of people, they don't understand this illness. You know, they wonder, how in the world could you do something like that to yourself?
Well, because I believed I was fat. It didn't matter how much I ate, I always felt that I was huge. In my mind's eye, I was the fattest man on the earth. But actually, I was wasting away, so you can see. You ought to see me in a swimsuit. I'm like a skeleton.
So what you're trying to say to me is that in your mind, you believed you were a fat person.
Absolutely.
Luther, you are a fat person.
What do you mean?
You're the size of a Kmart, Luther. That's what I mean. I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything.
Can I still be on the TV show?
I don't know, Luther. You got to be skinny to be anorexic. Who told you you were anorexic?
Well, maybe they told me I was fat.
That would be a logical conclusion, that maybe they told you were fat. Get a hold of yourself. Get a hold of yourself. I knew this thing wasn't going to work. I knew it wasn't going to work. The movie tonight, Luther, just calm down. I will deal with your emotional problems in just a minute, whatever they are. The movie tonight is Hell High, the story of what can happen when 4 incredibly immature high school students start throwing slime at their teachers. Have a couple of these moon pies, Luther, you'll feel better. Things just might get a little out of control. I don't want to tell you too much about it. It's one of those things where you really can't tell what's going to happen next, but I'll just put it this way. 6 dead bodies, 10 naked breasts, 1 motor vehicle chase, 2 bodies impaled on sharp metal spikes, and a whole bunch of swamp scum. They call it Hell High. Watch this movie, Luther. Maybe you'll learn something. And, well, Luther, did you ever get past 8th grade? I mean, I know they held you back a couple times, but I didn't realize it was this bad. I got to calm down here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to introduce this movie or not. I got to get hold of myself. All right. Okay. Maybe I can go on now. Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 has a few problems. Now, one, the movie doesn't make a lick of sense. Of course, this has never stopped us on drive-in theater up to now, but it's got more problems than that. 2, a guy gets chainsawed through the skull, and then he comes back later in the movie with only slight injuries. I mean, they don't even do this in Friday the 13th movies. And normally, I wouldn't even mention Friday the 13th and Saw in the same breath, but I'm afraid they have brought it down to that level. Number 3, the movie is over so fast that you can't hardly believe it. You think the film broke or something. 4, they made it in California. 5, it even looks like they made it in California. They've got hills in the background. 6, you never even see Leatherface do any actual carving. But even if these were the only things wrong with this movie, I got to mention one thing that happens right at the first that is completely unforgivable. I'm sorry, but Kate Hodge, the new actress who's trying to replace the greatest screamer in film history, Marilyn Burns from the first movie, Kate Hodge runs over an armadillo in the road. And then she stops to see if the armadillo is okay. Obviously, these people have never been to Texas. Now, I know what the producer and the director and everybody's going to say. They're going to say that it used to be a good movie, but then the Motion Picture Censor Board got on their case and gave it an X rating, and they had to take a chainsaw to the movie, and what came out was different. And it's true, the Jack Valenti boys hammered away at this baby, evidently demanding stuff be taken out that they allowed in the first movie in 1974. Now, I don't know exactly understand what's happening here, but I know that during the past 2 years, these bozos in LA have decided to crack down on horror movies. They want movies about nice cannibals. They want cannibals that carve up tourists in loving ways. But see, what I'm getting at is that the owners of this movie, they had a choice. They could say, we don't give a flying for holy what the MPAA censor board says, and so we're putting out the movie without any rating on it. Or they could weenie out, cut it into 1,000,000 pieces and release it with an R. They weenied out on us. They suckered us for $5. They profaned the name of the most revered horror movie in film history. Now, I'm not saying it's all bad. I mean, there's some gall-dang scary stuff in it. But I'm going to have to go somewhere else while y'all watch it, because I can't bear to think of this thing going out on the airwaves, turning the chainsaw that we all know and love into a steak knife. 9 dead bodies, no breasts, no soul. You know, that's what they took out. They took the soul out of the saw. Go ahead, run the flick, but I got to go. I don't want to cry in public. I'm sorry. I'm all right. Well, like I say, there were a few good things in it, but at the end you go, huh? That guy's alive? The one that got his head chainsawed in half, please. I mean, could you figure it out? Wasn't that little girl about to do something extremely nasty and then they cut that scene? Wasn't she about to carve up the whiny yuppie guy? I can't figure it out. Shame on you people. Okay, next week we have One Man Force, starring the late John Matusak as a cop who decides to kill all the drug dealers in the world. They blow up a whole bunch of stuff in it. You'll enjoy it. And right now it's time for Joe Bob's Advice to the Hopeless, the old drive-in mailbag. And our letter comes from Adam Stern of Armonk, New York. And he says, Dear Joe Bob, did I hear you correctly when you said you don't pick the movies? Have the retards at the movie channel been hanging out with the mayor of D.C. and smoking crack? Hiring you and not letting you pick the movies, that's like putting Tracy Lords in a porn movie and not letting her do any sex scenes. I know you'll never be able to host a George Romero zombie festival on TMC or something of the sort, but in all honesty, 1/3 of the time I don't even watch the movie, I just watch you. The only reason I got the movie channel and the 37 channels that go with it is to watch drive-in theater. So come on, make some demands of those Tom Cruise-loving losers who run your stinking channel. At the very least, get a microwave out of them. Okay, yes, Adam, you heard me correctly. I am being held prisoner by the programming department. They hired a few new LA guys last year that are doing a much better job listening to me a little bit more, but we can use all the outraged fan letters you can muster asking these guys to liberate Joe Bob. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I can't tell you how important February the 9th is. We are showing Evil Dead that night, the zombie classic, in its original uncut form. It is very grisly, and as you know, it is intense. If this works, others might follow. They have agreed to show Frankenhooker. They've agreed to show Basket Case 2. As you know, for years I've wanted them to show I Spit on Your Grave. So far they still say no way Jose Bob Briggs on that one. But I've been hammering on them for 3 years and they are finally starting to react to me. I appreciate the support. Pour some more letters in on us. It helps a lot. If you write to me, I'll send you a copy of my world-famous We Are the Weird newsletter and tell you how you can get a bunch of free junk. So write to the Movie Channel mailbox, P.O. Box 1264, Radio City Station, New York, New York 10101. Or you can call up my comedy line, 1-900-4-JOE-BOB, and leave your name and address on my answering machine. That's 1-900-4-JOE-BOB, $1.50 for the first minute, 75 cents each additional, and that's it for that. So, until we meet again, as Roy Rogers always used to say, when you march in the parade of life, never walk behind trigger, and the drive-in will never die. Yeah.
The snack bar is open.
Well, here we are, the 490th week of Joe Bob's Drive-In Theater. And as most of you know by now, we're not going to make it to 500. This is the last night that we'll be sitting here in the old trailer park celebrating the 3 Bs, Blood, Breasts, and Beasts on the Movie Channel. Not that I won't be celebrating blood, breasts, and beasts. I'll just be doing it somewhere else. Probably at pathetic little beer parties in East Dallas or something. We'll roast a goat and watch Shannon Tweed videos. But I want to thank everybody who's written into us the last few weeks to tell us sayonara, and I thought that tonight, instead of doing my usual monologue, I would answer a few of the questions that you guys always ask me, but I never wanted to answer them before because I always thought it would spoil the fun of the show. So, first of all, one of them is, Joe Bob, do you really count all them breasts in every movie you show? And yeah, I do. It's pitiful, isn't it? I actually make little marks on a legal pad, and so please don't tell my mother that I do that, okay? Another thing I always get asked is, where do y'all do that show? It's in New York City, isn't it? Well, I got you on that one because we're in Garland, Texas, which is the next town over from Dallas, and in fact, we're in the same studio where Ross Perot ran his 1992 presidential campaign. Remember all those infomercials with the blackboard and the pointers and everything? All the time Ross was doing that, he had to be staring at the drive-in theater set. And you know, it's kind of hard to concentrate when you're looking at this messy set here. So the thought of that makes me kind of happy. Some of you wanted to know how we got started doing this. It's kind of a complicated story. I started reviewing drive-in movies for a newspaper called the Dallas Times-Herald, or the Dallas Slimes-Herald as we called it, back in 1982. And then in 1985 I got fired from that newspaper for being too disgusting for general consumption. I started doing a stand-up comedy act, and in October of 1986 I came on the movie channel just to do 1 month as a guest host. They had hired some real hosts, Michelle Russell and Robert Osborne, if you remember that far back. And I was just sort of comic relief for them for 1 month. But they invited me back 2 or 3 months, and in fact, I never missed a week. That's when the 490 shows started. And we just kept expanding it every week, adding guests. We added the monologue. We messed around with the viewer mail. We added the mail girl. The show got so complicated that the Cable Ace Awards, they don't even have a category that we fit in. It would be something like comedy, variety, movie hosting, interview format, 5 to 15 minutes, 3 times a night, weekly. That's what it is. We did get nominated for the Cable Ace twice, though, but we'd always lose out to the Discovery Channel or something weird. We were in like the educational, informational category. Another thing people want to know is, do you write that stuff out or you just say what pops into your head? Well, listen, I'm glad you think it just pops into my head, but I do have to write it down first because I'd never remember everything that I have to say if I didn't have Lisa Magic Fingers Escalante works my teleprompter every week for me, and but I do write it down. Another thing people ask is, do you have an audience there with you? We always hear these people laughing there, and the answer is, well, no, we don't, not really. It's just me, and there's 6 other guys here. We've got Ernie with the headphones over here on the floor. We got Jay and Jim on camera. We got Jordan and Paul on lights, and we got Daryl working the microphones. He sticks it down the mail girl's dress like the pro he is. And every single member of the crew is a die-hard Dallas Cowboys fan. It's the only requirement to be employed here. Now, I want to tell you guys something that has made this the greatest job in the world. I've done a lot of jobs. You don't even want to know what jobs I've done, but I have never gotten the kind of mail that I get from this job. And I apologize to those of you I wasn't able to answer personally because I did make a valiant effort at it. I actually tried to answer all the mail for a long time. Had it piled up so high in the back seat of my car it was obstructing the rear view mirror. But the great thing about the mail is it's so gall-dang personal. You people have told me intimate details of your life, and I have to think that's because you felt this is kind of a relaxed atmosphere here where you can tell us anything. And so we're occasionally, I like that because it means we're breaking through the BS here, and we've kind of become psychic video partners, and I like that feeling. As we go through the evening here tonight, I'm going to be thanking various people, reminiscing a little bit about stuff we've done on the show. But I want you guys to know, you hardcore regulars that have written to me over the years and hung in there on the show, that if you ever see me on the street, walk in the other direction. Only kidding. Come up and say howdy. I'd like to meet you. But after this first movie, I'm going to bring out the mail girl. We'll talk to her a little bit. But right now, we're going to watch a flick called Revenge. And what this is, it's a damn good novel that was screwed up by having Kevin Costner in it, is what it is. Should have been Clint Eastwood, somebody like that. But this is a Jim Harrison novel about this guy who goes down to Mexico and falls in love with a big shot's wife, which in Mexico is not a good idea, especially when the big shot is played by Anthony Quinn, and the always fatal Madeline Stowe is the love interest. And it's kind of slow, but it's still got some nice moments, so check it out. and then join me after the flick for the continuation of our Farewell to the Movie Channel show. Okay, how was that? Good. I wasn't sappy, was I? Because I can't stand sappy. Okay, that was Revenge. It's halfway decent, but I want you to think about it for a minute. What if instead of Kevin Costner, you had Clint Eastwood or even Alec Baldwin? You know, somebody with a strong voice. I don't know. What do I know? I just got canceled. What am I talking about? Anyway, in case you missed our intro tonight, this is our final night at the drive-in on the Movie Channel. This is our 490th original show without a single rerun, and we're kind of sitting around doing nothing tonight instead of talking about the movies like we should, but what the heck are they going to do to us? So, where's the mail girl? Let's bring out the mail girl. How you doing, honey?
Hey, what's going on?
All right. I promised I would answer all the questions that you guys always ask about the show tonight, and of course, a lot of those questions are about the mail girl. So, honey, what I'm going to do is ask you the questions.
Okay.
And tonight, if you can summon up the courage, give me the real, true answer, okay? Instead of messing around. This is Honey Gregory, by the way, an actress and a college student at SMU. And one reason I enjoyed having Honey here as the mail girl is that the feminists always write in and complain whenever I call a woman Hun or Honey on the show. So every week I would call her Honey, and it's her real name. So if we got any humanistic letters, it would make them feel real stupid when I told them that. Okay, number one question, Honey.
Oh, no.
Are you married?
Hell no.
They always ask that one. Hell no. That's like a mixed answer. What do you like in a man? They ask that one too.
I like them tall. I like cowboys. I like tall cowboys.
I'm closer than I realized. Where are you from?
I'm from Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth. All right. Are you looking for a husband?
I'm not looking, but if the right one just falls in my lap, I'll snatch him up and right off.
A lot of them are probably aching to fall in your lap, huh?
Well, we'll see what happens.
Wait, now, weren't you in some famous music video?
Oh, gosh.
A while back?
I've been in several different ones. I did a Doug Supernaw and one for the Georgia Satellites and a couple others. I was in that movie Hexed. Different things.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, stick around here for a minute, okay, while I do some more business. The guys just love it when you sit there and you do that thing where you shake your shoulders.
Oh.
Yeah, they love that. So you can do that all you want. And by the way, if you want to write to me, I will still get the mail, and Honey will still get her mail. You can write to either one of us at the Movie Channel mailbox, P.O. Box 1264, Radio City Station, New York, New York, 10101. And you can also contact me on the internet through CompuServe. Just look up Joe Bob Briggs on CompuServe. And, oh, I forgot. There was one other question I was supposed to answer, which is, Joe Bob, do you choose those awful movies you show, or do they just choose them for you? And the answer is, it's about 50-50. Usually they choose them for me, but they would generally listen to me when I wanted a certain title, you know, that I was crazy about. The reason they choose them, though, is that the budget for this show meant that we could show any movie we wanted that cost $50 or less. So that kind of narrowed down how creative we could be. Another thing I ought to explain is why we're being canceled, by the way. I've explained it before, but I'll say it again. The Movie Channel is going to a whole new format, and their slogan is, you're never more than 60 seconds away from a movie on the Movie Channel. So you can see right there, I couldn't describe Honey's bra in 60 seconds. I mean, I can't say nothing in 60 seconds. Another thing people wanted to know is, who was my favorite guest over the years? And I'm not going to narrow it down to just one, because we had something like 150 people on the show at one time or another. But the people I admire the most, I would have to say, are Roger Corman, who is really the inventor of the modern drive-in movie, great producer, director. Andy and Arlene Sedaris, the husband-wife direct and producing team that made all the Malibu Express films with the Playboy Playmates. Andy's one of the funniest guys alive. Lance Henriksen, probably the best pure D actor who's ever been on the show. Don the Dragon Wilson, Kung Fu guy, the nicest guy who's ever been here. What a nice guy. Kathy Shower, Playmate of the Year. She's about probably the nicest girl who's ever been here, although I have a real weakness for Michelle Bauer and Brink Stevens and Linnea Quigley and Wendy McDonald and Vivian Schilling. I just have a weakness, you know. But Sally Kirkland, the most out-of-control guest we ever had. Sally damn near ripped my clothes off. You remember when Sally was here? And I have to mention my buddy Wayne Newton, who was the special guest on our 5th anniversary show that we did from Las Vegas. Wayne, he let me do 10 solid minutes of put-down jokes about his act, It was just the greatest sport I've ever worked with on a show. And that Las Vegas show, by the way, was also the most expensive show we ever did. They're still trying to bill me for the money we went over budget. We were filming in the Elvis suite of the Hilton Hotel, the actual room that Elvis lived in, and somebody left this open bottle of tequila out, and you don't even want to know what we did in that room. But I'm sure I'm leaving people out, but I'll be back one more time tonight, and I'll try to wind this whole deal up. But right now, we're going to watch the movie Bitter Harvest. It's a great erotic thriller that takes place out in the sticks. When country boy Stephen Baldwin's fundamentalist daddy dies, he inherits more than the farm. He ends up living with these two beautiful babes, Patsy Kensit and Jennifer Rubin, and they goad him into robbing banks to spice up their already kinky love life. And Deputy Sheriff Adam Baldwin does not approve of what's going on. 6 dead bodies, 8 breaths, multiple aardvarking, 2 motor vehicle chases with crash, Kinkorama, 4 stars, check it out, and then we'll finish off this final installment of Drive-In Theater with a Bo Derek movie. Can you believe that? Yeah. As Alaina Morissette would say, how appropriate. Bo Derek. What do you say, honey? You want to be in? I'm going to make a big budget movie later this year. You want to be in it? Do you?
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Sure.
See you later.
Yeah.
See, I do know what to say when I'm really trying. All right, that was Bitter Harvest, one of my favorites. The bitches get away with it again, don't they? Brutal, scary movie. It's my kind of flick. Well, I just have a few more words to say on this, the final night and the final few minutes of Joe Bob's Drive-In Theater. This has always been a show that doesn't have any credits at the end. They're not allowed on this kind of cable. I don't know why. And so I want to thank some people who have never had their names up on the screen during the last 9.5 years. First, my director is a guy named Tom Moore, who will be known to some of you as the guy who dressed up in the Santa Claus suit last Christmas and got drunk and acted like a jerk. Tom was a child actor, and we now know why he never became a grown-up actor. But Tom is best known as the creator of a classic B-movie called The Town That Dreaded Sundown, as well as a whole host of TV commercials. But I want to thank you, Tom, for occasionally having the right camera turned on at the right moment. I also want to thank our producer, David Yarnell, the legendary creator of such famous shows as That's Incredible and Love American Style. Are you proud of that one, David? What quality TV that was, Love American Style. David is the kind of guy who's proud of the fact that he could shoot 5 Love American Styles in a single day. Of course, they didn't have time for things like acting, and David was the original producer for William Buckley's Firing Line, and he's the guy that did that show that was on just at Thanksgiving, America's Greatest TV Moments. He did a Roseanne Barr HBO special recently. But anyway, basically, he does a lot of mind candy on TV is what David does. And then assisting me on the show every week are 2 very beautiful females, of course, Mary Kuhn and Tanya Lindstrom, 2 of the most intelligent people that I've ever known in my life. Nina Smars does the makeup around here. Foxy babe, she is. Teresa Bond does the makeup for the male girl. Second makeup. Major job. Male girl makeup. Major job. Dee Dee Dunham does the wardrobe. A woman that irons. That's what I've always wanted to marry. That's Dee Dee. Janice Metcalf handles the art direction, which means she kind of throws these pieces of trash all over the set every week. Also a major fox. I'm going to miss these gals. I didn't realize how many women we have around here. Almost forgot Bob Dickinson. I always forget Bob because he's the guy who lives in the glass booth and goes, camera 2, camera 1. I don't know what that is. David and Steve run the tape machines. I have no idea where they are, what they do. And there's this big old skyscraper at 1633 Broadway in New York City where Showtime Networks is. And there are 3 people there who are the actual movie channel high sheriffs, or at least they're as high up the ladder as anybody ever let me go. And that's Frank Pintaro, Ann Foley, and Alan Zapikin. These are the people I've been razzing for 9 years as hopelessly inept, bumbling idiots. And of course, until now, nobody knew their names, so I wanted to match those up. But I want to thank the 3 of them for giving me more freedom than anybody in the history of television that I know of. I don't know if they were afraid to edit these scripts or if they just thought, oh, what the hell, nobody's watching this stuff. But they have let me get away with murder for years and always given me the tools and the support to do this job. And actually, I know what they're going to say. They're going to say I turned the scripts in so late there was nothing they could do. But they never pulled the plug on me, and I do appreciate that. So we're about done here. People ask me sometimes if I really do go to the drive-in. Well, the honest answer is I hadn't lived anywhere close to an operating drive-in for years now, But the reason this show was always called Drive-In Theater is that the drive-in is sort of a lost cause. It's a part of America that represents the movies that aren't respectable, you know, the people that don't have as much money as the rest of them, the attitude that the experience of watching movies is more important than who directed it or what kind of fancy lens they used. Because at a drive-in, everybody just kind of hangs around until the movie's over. Sometimes they watch, sometimes they don't, but when they go home, they feel better. And that's why I always say the drive-in will never die, because they can rip down that drive-in screen, but they can't wipe out that feeling of community that we all have when we watch movies together. It's a very American thing. It's what we've tried to create here, and I think the whole world envies it. I'm Joe Bob Briggs. I'll see you somewhere on down the road.